Good morning everyone, today we're checking out a brand new video from the Truthers about how to get the world's loudest burp. And honestly, I'm only checking out this video because as a guy, I'm curious.
We broke a world record. That
Hey,
is not
congrats.
a punchline, that's real facts. This is without a doubt the weirdest episode we've done, but I'm so pumped. Roll it! Now what I meant.
Oh, damn. Alright,
Hello, Internet.
salty.
Welcome to Food Theory, the show that's always coming back up. Okay, quick little trigger warning for all my theorists out there with misophonia. This episode is chock full of those
Misophonia?
sounds, but
What
it's
is that?
so good you have to stick around. By the way, quick personal
Oh, it's the fear of loud noises, isn't it? Hold on. Never mind, got nothing.
fact about me that you can use on your next theorist trivia night. What is Santi unable to do? We don't have a buzzer, so just go ahead and use the subscribe button when you have the answer. Ding! If you guess burping, you get 5 points, so be
Really?
sure to cash them in
Can't
later.
burp?
Yeah, no matter how hard I've tried over the years, I just can't burp. Not sure why. I guess I'm just too polite and sophisticated. But because I can't, I've always had so many questions about it. Why do people burp? And how does drinking carbonated beverages make you burp? So I
because
decided
of the
enough
L.
was enough. I needed to make an episode about this, so all of my questions on the subject.
Surprisingly, the burp is mostly just about drinking in a lot of air along with your fluid. And drinking carbonated beverages along with it helps it as well because they are full of, well, carbonation and little air pockets. And so if you can drink that while having it take in a lot of air, you can in theory get either louder burp or longer burp.
Subject could be answered. But I wanted to go further than that. You guys aren't just here to listen to me talking about burping. You're here to listen to people actually burp. Music to absolutely no ears. Not only are we gonna figure out what makes people burp, but we're out to break a world record using the power of science. Drink up, theorists, as we see what it takes to make the world's loudest burp. Before we can attempt to break records with the loudest burp, we need to know what
Oh,
burping
wow.
is and understand why people burp. Using that information, we can create
What is burping? Why is burping?
an experiment to optimize our burping potential. Now, most of you already know that burping comes from excess gas in your stomach. It can make your stomach expand and lead to discomfort. To help us out, our stomachs will then expel the air out of our mouths to release the tension. The excess air can come from a few things. For example, when we swallow a drink or some food, we swallow air as well. And typically,
see?
the faster you eat or drink, the more air you swallow. But one of the biggest culprits of burping is the fizzy drink. Drinks that have bubbles in them, also known as carbonated drinks, have a reputation of causing people to burp, particularly if you drink lots of it at once. You know when you have a bottle of soda and you open it for the first time? A big hiss sound happens and all the bubbles rise to the top of the bottle. That's the gas escaping from the liquid. Now imagine that, but inside your stomach after chugging a can of Coke. The gas needs to get out. That air expands your stomach and causes it to stretch. The stretching makes your esophagus relax, which lets the air move back up and out. And that sound that comes with it, well, that happens because coming up, that air hits what's called the upper esophageal sphincter. Yes, sphincter, like the one you have down there, or like my pet name for Tom, but a sphincter is just a ring of muscle that surrounds the opening of a tube to essentially help it close when it needs to. So what happens when all that air forces its way through the muscle? Well, it causes the
vibrates
whole thing and the vocal cords around it to vibrate and bam, or burp, or brah. Again, I don't burp. So now we know why we burp when drinking fizzy drinks. But which drink will make the loudest burp? Well, first things first, like any good experiment, we need to try and isolate the variables. And carbonation is a huge variable. Not just
Probably
how
the
many of those
biggest,
little
I'd
bubbles
say.
there are, but how big they are too. Now, unfortunately for those of you that are huge fans of Coke, Fanta, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, or any other soda, they introduce a lot of variables that we can't control for, like inconsistent and hard to determine carbonation levels, or sugar levels, and a whole slew of ingredients that may have an effect. Since we're trying to isolate as many variables as possible, we don't want any wild cards influencing the results. That means we'll be sticking to sparkling water for the majority of today. For science. Weird
That
science, but science nonetheless. But there's still some things we need to adjust for, because even keeping it simple by just using sparkling water isn't that easy. Not all sparkling water is made equally. Much like how not all colas are made the exact same way, sparkling waters can vary in the level of carbonation. That's how much gas gases in the drink per liter. There are 4 different categories of carbonation. Effervescent, which is extremely light carbonation, basically almost flat. Then there's light, which is slightly stronger but still considered weak. Then you have your classic. This is the one that most people associate with sparkling water. This is where drinks like San Pellegrino sit. And finally, there's bold. These drinks are highly carbonated and typically have huge bubbles. But there is an outlier here. Perrier is your expected bold sparkling water with high carbonation, so it has big bubbles. But it's not always the more carbonation, the bigger the bubbles. Other options like Topo Chico have high carbonation and lots of little bubbles. So which of these 4 carbonation categories is going to make the loudest burp? Well, in theory, food theory, the bold sparkling water is going to fill up our stomach with more gas, and so more air will be expelled during the burping. More equals louder. But we aren't just going to guess. We are going to put it to the test. So in lieu of my ability to burp, I have found the most capable and most available people in the office to carry out this experiment. We have Rachel, Kai, and Josiah, but we needed a 4th. I tried getting more people to do it, but someone who will not be named said burping goes against their polite British heritage. Again, not saying who, but it rhymes with I'mABigWeenie.com. Fortunately, our good pal Justin came to the rescue and became our 4th volunteer. When I asked them if they wanted to try and make the loudest burp, without hesitation, these 4 volunteered.
I burp on the regular for my entire life. Everything in my life has led me to this moment.
But we aren't just gonna get them to chug a bottle of sparkling water. That's too easy. We want to know what kind of sparkling water can create the loudest burp. We're gonna try 4 different drinks. First, there's the classic San Pellegrino and LaCroix. Both of these have 7 grams of carbonation per liter, but they're...
LaCroix? Huh. Surprisingly, I've actually heard a lot of bad things about it. Mostly it just doesn't taste good.
Made slightly differently. Then we're gonna test out 2 bold sparkling waters. Perrier, which is the high carbonation and big bubbles, and Topo Chico, which is high carbonation and little bubbles. Each of our contestants, that's right, this is a competition now, will drink 6 ounces of this drink at room temperature. Then they'll burp into a decibel meter. We'll take a look at which sparkling water on average makes the loudest burp and move it on to the next round where we'll start to test different methods to get an even louder burp. Of course, we will keep track of individual scores because we're a competitive bunch. As it is a competition now, who do you think will make the loudest burp? Comment down below the name of your winning contestant and the drink that will land them to victory. But enough talk, let's get down to business. What was interesting is that most of the group are not sparkling water drinkers.
I am not the biggest unflavored sparkling water fan.
I like flavor in my life, and sparkling water is basically the absence of flavor.
I don't like sparkling water.
So making them drink gallons of the stuff, also that I can make a video about it, might seem mean, but to be clear, they all volunteered to do this. So you know what? Stop complaining and drink your flavorless spicy water. First off, we have our San Pellegrino. Everyone's gonna drink 6 ounces of it, starting at a relatively normal speed. We aren't chugging just yet. Starting off with Josiah, who, let's say, gave us a baseline to work with.
The first time I had this, I thought it was like the most fancy thing in the world. 53.6. Weak. I don't think you're gonna get me going much higher.
Okay, well, 53 seems like a low number, but maybe once everyone's done it, we'll see if it's actually not that bad.
85.2.
Wow.
66.
69 flat.
Okay, so Josiah was a little weak on that.
Okay,
Coming last
flat,
with 53.6 decibels, and Justin up there with a solid 69. Nice. Let's see if these guys will do better with LaCroix.
LaCroix. Nobody says that. Everyone says LaCroix.
Well, I say LaCroix, Rachel. Now, LaCroix has the same amount of carbonation per liter as San Pellegrino, 7 grams. But there's something that sets them apart from each other. San Pellegrino naturally contains minerals because the water is sourced in a naturally occurring spring. When minerals are in the water, it can affect the bubble size due to how the minerals interact with the carbon dioxide. Minerals in the water can lead to smaller bubbles. LaCroix, on the other hand, has no natural minerals in it, meaning no other minerals interfering with our bubble size. So, although the same amount of carbonation is in this, we may be dealing with bigger bubbles than the San Pellegrino. Rachel noticed this straight away.
Those are bigger bubbles.
While others were focusing on the ASMR factor of the whole experiment.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Another ASMR. Ooh, wispy.
I swear to Ryan Reynolds, these people are gonna drive me crazy, but the quiet, gentle sounds didn't last very long as we started testing the burps.
Weak. 68.2. Interesting. I thought that one would make a bigger burp.
That was 81.9.
That was better. That one felt nice, too. 88.9.
Oh, that one's
85.7.
So overall, LaCroix was making louder burps for sure. Hard for me to say why, as I was not the one physically experiencing it, so I tried asking the team what they thought.
I was raised that burping is impolite.
It tasted bad. Again, I don't like it. There's some Dr. Pepper in it.
I mean, it kind of actually is impolite to just burp in public or in groups. That's why after you burp and you're around people, you say, "Excuse me," because that's the polite thing to do. But if you're by yourself and there's no one around to hear it, and burp as loud as you want because you're by yourself.
That's not the point, Rachel. My best guess was that the bubbles were bigger than there was more gas building up inside their stomachs. To prove that, we moved on to our next category. We are now looking at two bold sparkling waters. Perrier with 8 grams of CO2 per liter, and Topo Chico, which has a similar carbonation level at 7.7 grams per
Not
liter.
bad.
But it has smaller bubbles. This will help us understand if the bubble size plays a role in making louder burps. First up, our little bubble, Topo Chico.
That was 83.2.
Ugh. It was 83.7.
87.8. That one, I think, hurt the
Okay.
most out of all of them, actually. Chugging that much spicy water.
Should we make Payne a data point?
Oh, that's loud. Musical bubbles. Topo Chico is 104.
104 decibels? That's the same as a nightclub blaring music at you. And Rachel is achieving that sound with no speakers, just her stomach and the bubbles of a Topo Chico.
Now
Everyone else
that's
gave
how you
impressive
do it.
results, better than San Pellegrino and LaCroix, but Rachel's came out on top by a mile. If that's what we got from the small bubbles, I can't imagine what we're gonna get with our big bubble.
Maison Pellier.
Here we go.
Another 87.8.
106.
Dude, she's got a cheat code.
82.3.
63.2.
That was
You are weak,
pathetic.
Perrier.
Turns out, not much better. Once again, Rachel was continuing to break her personal best each time, but looking at everyone else's scores, the Perrier actually scored slightly lower, with Josiah being a lot lower than Topo, which is fascinating, because what
Oh,
we're
come on,
learning is that the
Josiah.
smaller bubbles in the Topo Chico allow you to take in more air in every gulp. That's why Topo's bubbles are said to be aggressive all over the interwebs. All the little bubbles make it a lot sharper, whereas the Perrier bubbles, while still spicy, felt smoother.
That one was definitely the smoothest, which is weird. I've
You know
never
what? I could
considered
actually
a fizzy
see
thing to
that.
be smooth, but it definitely went down the easiest.
So it's not about the bubble size, but how aggressive or active the bubbles themselves behave in the drink. So with our first round done, Topo
Now that
Chico
makes
was
sense.
crowned the sparkling water that got us the biggest burp, with Rachel proudly on the #1 podium for the loudest burper. But now we're refining our burps. We know Topo Chico is the one, but what other factors can affect how loud we can burp? The first thing we're gonna do is make the water cold. So far, we've been drinking room temperature sparkling water.
Yeah, if there is one thing that is known about carbonated beverages, if they get hot, they get flat, making them both taste nasty and have no bubbles. But if you keep them nice and cold, well, you can keep that bubble going for a long time.
Making the water cold will make a difference to the overall experience. Our body's internal temperature is fairly warm at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So when we introduce a cold carbonated beverage to that, the CO2 concentration rapidly changes, causing immediate gas expulsion, which is my fancy way of saying it make burp go burr. Basically, the cold interacting with the warm means the bubbles escape to the surface faster. At least that's what the science says. But after logging everyone's burps, the results were only slightly higher than drinking a room temperature Topo Chico. That being said, people did have a different experience with the cold Topo Chico.
84.5. I want to cry. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad, for embarrassing myself on the internet like this.
I don't blame Josiah. Oh my God, yeah, my eyes are watering a little bit. That's crazy.
If the bubbles are moving to the surface faster due to the coldness, then maybe the spice is harder and bringing these guys to tears. Either way, we still need to find a method that would result in a bigger burp. Maybe it's not the temperature of the drink, but the speed at which we drink it. Most people think that chugging a drink would lead to bigger burps. After all, you are taking more of those bubbles down.
That
It
would
makes
make sense.
But sipping is actually said to be more likely to cause burping. Each time you take a
Wait,
sip of
really
any
now?
drink from a cup, you're swallowing a bit of air each time. So every sip leads to more air being added. But to be sure, we are going to be testing both chugging and sipping to see what we get. When it came to the test, the results were a bit inconsistent. Kai got a louder burp when sipping by 3 decibels, but both Josiah and Justin
Okay.
got higher scores for chugging, even if it wasn't by a lot. And then Rachel got a pretty loud burp from chugging her drink.
We maxed out at 102.4.
Oh,
Chug is quieter
okay.
than you think.
Yeah.
We were all surprised that it was so much quieter. But then
Definitely.
came Rachel's burp after slowly sipping her Topo Chico. If you're wearing headphones right now, buckle up.
I think we have a new
Whoa.
record. That one felt pretty good. 123.2.
123.
Holy
Let me
shit.
pick my jaw up from the floor for a second because that is the same as a chainsaw. How is Rachel doing this? And why
How?
did everyone else do a quieter burp when sipping?
So that one was interesting because the other ones were pretty much the same where the sip was quieter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you blew that one out of the park. I think you
Yeah,
did a better job
did the
containing
opposite.
it.
Yeah, I used my muscles here.
You sure did, Rachel. To be clear, the loudest burp in the Guinness World Book of Records is 112 decibels. Now, we have been
Holy.
holding the decibel meter up close when measuring the sound. Typically, to get an accurate recorded sound level of something, you would hold it a few feet away, which might explain why Rachel completely smashed the world record like it was nothing. Unfortunately, we'll
okay, yeah,
probably
that
have to
makes
consider
sense.
this one a bit of an outlier. But that doesn't ruin our experiment because we have been consistent with the way we're holding the meter for each burp. So our results will still show us which burp is the loudest. Our chugs and sips were not giving us a consistently louder burp than just drinking room temperature Topo Chico at a regular pace. So I wanted to try
Okay.
one more variable for this round. What if we chugged more sparkling water? Would volume of the drink do the trick? This time, these
Maybe.
guys are
I
going to
could
throw
see
back
that.
12 ounces or just about the amount in a regular can, twice as much as before. Get ready, theorists. It's about to get loud.
Oh,
6.7.
83.5.
It says 82.6.
okay.
Whoa, 103.7.
While this
Not
wasn't
bad.
breaking Rachel's personal record, the overall average score was higher. At the end of round 2, the 12-ounce chug was the loudest at a 94 decibel average. In second place was the cold 6-ounce with an average score of 90 decibels, and in third
Nice.
place was the room temperature 6-ounce at 89 decibels. And once again, Rachel took first place as the loudest burper. So for the final round, I
That's
wanted to
still
try and get the
impressive.
biggest burp we could. So I decided to combine our best results together. When everyone drank more water, the burps were definitely louder, followed by the cold drink and then regular drinking speed. Round 3 was simple. Drink 12 ounces of cold Topo Chico at a regular speed. This was gonna be the Gogeta
Huh,
of burps.
okay.
Fusing all these forces together would make these
Fusion. Ha!
burps blow the roof off of the GT Live studio. But yeah, everyone was a bit tired from drinking so much water in one day.
This sucked. Don't drink that much sparkling water in one go. You're gonna have a really terrible time.
Water. And it tastes so bad.
I am filled with bubbles. I feel like I'm gonna float away. That was horrible. Now I gotta pee from drinking all this water.
So being the kind and
makes sense.
benevolent host that I am, I gave them the rest of the day to get it all out of their system and come back the next day for round 3.
All right, back for another round of drinking water.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
going cold topo.
I peed so much yesterday. I didn't even know what to do with myself. Here we go.
85.3. Oh boy.
It's so
Ooh.
unpleasant when it's cold. There's an 83.2. Chugging cold sparkling water hurts.
I hate drinking water. It sucks. There's so much of it. 106.4.
Whoa, that was
Oh,
impressive.
That's just too much water, I think.
The results we got here were interesting. I mean, first of all, these people really didn't like drinking this, to the point of it being painful. It wasn't anyone's personal
Not that
highest,
bad.
especially not Rachel, but it was the most consistently loud.
Then again, it's because it's not flavored. If it even had a little bit of flavor, it'd be a lot more bearable for them.
In our other test, some people would get loud burps, like Kai and Rachel, for example, but Justin and Josiah would get quieter ones. Drinking the cold Topo Topo Chico gave a more consistent average across the board, giving a score of 90.02 decibels. What this shows us is the method that you drink, be it in sips, at a normal pace, or even chugging, doesn't really guarantee a loud burp. The method that provided a consistently high score for everyone was drinking it cold. And when it comes to what kind of drink, high carbonation and small bubbles do the trick, even though it definitely will hurt more. And despite the chainsaw burp probably not being completely accurate, congrats to our first place winner, Rachel. Your parents must be so proud. But before I could crown 12 ounces of a cold Topo Chico the winner, I decided to, once again being the benevolent host that I am, let my participants get into their burping comfort zones.
It's noticeably less fizzy. The bubbles here are smaller, I feel, than the bubbles from the Topo Chico. Coca-Cola.
So next up
Oh,
is
yeah.
a classic can of Diet Coke. I don't drink
I
full
love
sugar
cola.
soda regularly just because I have sensitive teeth and full sugar sodas and drinks tend to make my teeth hurt. So
Oh,
I
I'm
go for
sorry about
Diet.
that.
84.8.
I decided to bring one of my favorite pop alternatives, Liquid Death.
Oh, yeah.
Not chugging this one either, going at a leisurely pace. 84.1. Excuse me again.
Always the polite professional,
it's
that
okay.
one. A poll pro. A peep. Oh, nope, never mind. Definitely not that.
What I think of when I think of burping, which I do on the regular, which is maybe connected to how much I drink this beverage. Crack her open. 109.
Rachel, the undisputed champion, once
She
again.
cannot
And
be
here's the
beat.
thing. While the 120 decibel reading was likely an outlier, her 2 Dr. Pepper burps landed her in the range of 107.6 to 109, both of which are higher than the current world record for females at 107.3. That's right. When we took our findings from the experiment but applied them to Rachel's comfort drink, Dr. Pepper, we actually managed to top the world record. Get Guinness on the phone right now. We need to make this official. But while we do that, there is one more question to answer, and that's why?
Loudest burp done by a woman.
Why did Dr. Pepper give Rachel such a consistently louder burp? Well, it really does just come down to simply enjoying the beverage, because you are more likely to drink it quicker and probably take bigger gulps of air with it, as opposed to the sparkling water, which nobody really enjoyed. This could definitely explain why Josiah got a loud burp despite drinking just a different kind of sparkling water. The other 3
Yeah,
were drinking
he
sweetened
literally drank
carbonated
water.
drinks. This changes a lot of what's going on in your stomach. New ingredients are reacting with the carbon dioxide inside. Artificial sweeteners, for instance, both found in the Diet Dr. Pepper and Diet Coke, aren't digested well by our stomachs, which can lead to more production of gas. Justin's regular Coke doesn't have artificial sweeteners, but it does contain sugar and caffeine. It's not a lot of caffeine, but it can still irritate your stomach, which once again produces gas. And finally, the
look at
acids
that.
contained in the beverages, like phosphoric acid in Coke and Dr. Pepper and citric acid in the Diet Coke, all change the pH balance in our stomachs. This pH change can stimulate digestive activity, which can, say it with
Makes
me this
sense.
time, lead to more production of gas. Long story short, extra flavors lead to more burping potential. It's just harder to understand how each individual ingredient contributes to the louder burp. So
Oh, that's
after
vanilla.
all of that, if you want to get
But
the
that's gonna
loudest
have a
burp
cinnamon.
possible from a
It's
plain
not.
sparkling water, go for something like Topo Chico. High carbonation, small bubbles, and make sure it's nice and cold. But at the end of the day, you're not gonna burp loudly if you hate what you're drinking. So grab a cold 12 ounces of your favorite drink, down it at your pace, and in the words of Tyson Granger, let it rip. But
Hey, the first
that's just a
Beyblade.
theory. A food theory. Bottoms up. And hey, if you want to see more
Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see y'all next time when we flick back on. Until then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.